At the back there, you can see a cart, and it's got all the nacelles for the jet engines of the ME 262 that's parked in the corner over here. And this one's really special because they are the original engines. And there's quite a few, well, I shouldn't say quite a few, but there's a number of these aircraft flying today. As a matter of fact, 5 of them were built brand new. And there's a brand new one sitting in a museum in Oregon. And the Messerschmitt Museum in Germany has one. But this one has the original engines on it. The ones that have been produced recently are all using modern engines, little Learjet engines stuffed in there. But these are the original jet engines. So they are never going to fly this one again. But what they have been doing is they operate. This whole thing works, and they've been taxiing it around. So you can drive this thing around, but they don't dare fly it. These engines didn't last all that long back in the day, 1944, 1945 when they were flying. I think this plane first flew in 42. But the main downfall of it is these engines. Pretty neat that they've got one all fixed up and ready to go, flyable. But they'll never fly her. Who knows, maybe they will. The BF-109 is actually the smallest fighter of its kind. It's quite a bit smaller than all the American stuff, way smaller than the ME 262 that's parked right next to it. Behind it is a whole bunch of stuff from the ME 262. All the engine cowlings, looks like an oil tank there, a fuel tank. Oh, it looks like it's right out of the belly. I'm dying to see one of these engines apart. I'm dying to see a bit more of one of these engines, because apparently there's a little tiny piston engine at the front of this engine that starts it up. It's for starting it up. Apparently there's a little tiny engine in there that spins the engine up before igniting the burners to make a jet out of it. Apparently it's very noisy. You can really see the leading edge slats here they're manually controlled, so to speak. The aerodynamics control them. They droop down at low speed, and at higher speeds they get pushed back into the wing and create less drag. This one seems to have the root fairing. The wing root fairing has been removed for some reason. Maybe because the airplane's recently been put back together. Perhaps. Sure see a lot of the attachment points there. And 4 big cannon in the nose of this one. Although when it was built, it was reconnaissance, had 4 cameras in there. All right, so here's what I know about this plane. I've got my notes, studied it. So this airplane was built in March of 1945. It was built as a recon aircraft. It was built in a forest factory in a town called Oberrabling in Germany, about 200 miles from the main Messerschmitt factory, where it went by rail in pieces when it was new, and it was first test flown at the Messerschmitt factory, and it would have had all its flight tests done there. Its first recorded flight was on March 14th in 1945, when Sergeant Otto Kaiser began flight tests from Memmingen. Following flight tests, the plane was converted from a fighter to a photo reconnaissance plane in Eger, Germany. The 30mm nose guns, you see them on this one, there's two on this side and two on the other side, they were replaced by a pair of vertically mounted cameras. This airplane was one of many captured by the Allies at the end of the Second World War. There was an Allied operation called Operation Lusty, and it was the gathering of items of technical interest to the Allied forces, American, British, French. And they gathered up all these, Operation Lusty gathered up all these aircraft and tanks and anything at all, and brought them all back to the States. So it was captured by the Americans, and they painted over the markings, put the American stars and stripes on her, and then they flew it over to France. The airplane was transferred to the United States on a British aircraft carrier with about 40 other airplanes. The aircraft carrier was the HMS Reaper, and it docked in New Jersey, and this airplane was transferred to Wright-Patterson Airfield. The next known flight of this airplane was on May 17, 1946, when Lieutenant Colonel Harold Watson flew her to Wright-Patterson Field. It flew a flight test and evaluation program of 8 flights, totaling 4 hours and 40 minutes of flight time. During these flights, the airplane suffered multiple engine failures and 4 engine changes were required. 2 single-engine landings. This didn't impress anybody. On to my next page. In late 1946, the aircraft was loaned to the Hughes Aircraft Company for studies. It was used in the background of a John Wayne movie, sitting on the ground. In 1955, the aircraft was acquired in poor condition by Edward Maloney for his Planes of Fame Museum in California. It was transferred to California, and it spent the majority of its life there. It actually helped it last as well as it did because California is very dry and warm, and it was very good for the long term of this aircraft. It did not deteriorate like many others did. It is mostly original here. Quite a few of the skins are steel, and they've been replaced, but everything else is pretty original. Paul Allen purchased the airplane in 2000, and in 2007 it was sent to JME Aviation in England. There it received substantial work before being sent to Glosoc Unlimited in Casa Grande, Arizona by 2010. They only had the airplane for about a year, and then it got shipped up to Arlington, Washington, where Paul Allen has the majority of his collection. There's a warehouse up there that's got some pretty special stuff in it. Up in Arlington, Morgan Aircraft did final assembly and painted it, and put it all back together and got it all figured out. The engines were done separately by Aero Turbine in Stockton, California. They have been rebuilt to operate like new, but they're not new. They have a lot of metallurgy components in them that are made from metals that will last a lot longer than these ones were designed to last. This engine was originally designed to last only 25 hours with an extension to 35 hours if everything was going fine with it. It was not designed to be fixed. It was very hard to take apart. It was designed to be thrown away. They did not have the metallurgy and the quality of metals to make the engines last longer, and that was their main downfall. This engine could be reproduced with better metallurgy, and it'll last a lot longer. Additionally, the biggest differences in this aircraft as they made it to fly was these engines, the metal inside them, the fuel pumps on these engines, and the brakes. Apparently these things had horrible brakes, and this one here does not have horrible brakes. It's got some very different brakes in it that work really well. The airplane was then taken apart and shipped to Moses Lake in eastern Washington, where it was going to get flight test program. This was in 2019. Sadly, Paul Allen passed away, and the airplane had a lot of difficulties there, and and it was decided to disassemble the airplane, bring it back here, and put it together for the museum. My understanding is that it has done taxi tests, but it has not flown. And I believe Steve Hinton was the pilot. Sitting next to a 109, Sherman tank, Storch, Wildcat, F4U Corsair, and that's just this building. Let's have a look at what the plaque says. This Me-262 was built as a reconnaissance version with 2 large cameras in the nose. The plane was captured at Lichfield in Bavaria on the 27th of April. This is original. Holy smokes. 27th of April 1945 by units of the U.S. Army. It was transported to the USA as part of Operation Lusty, Luftwaffe Secret Technology, a coordinated effort to capture and evaluate German aeronautical technology. The U.S. Air Force test flew the aircraft and installed a smoothly contoured fighter nose. They changed the nose. Are you kidding? They installed a smoothly contoured fighter nose. Howard Hughes borrowed the plane to feature it in a movie, Jet Pilot, but it was never used. The museum acquired the aircraft from the Planes of Fame in Chico, California. After 15 years of work, 2 Jumo 004 engines were made operational, and this aircraft is taxied under its own power. So these are the original engines, and this is an original one. That's pretty special. There can't be too many of these around with your Jumo engines. I hear they're really heavy. Wow. An original 262 with a brand new canopy on it. Look at that. I've done this exact same shot at the one in McMinnville. It looks like original plexi. Let's see what they got for a nose on her. Does it have a camera in there? I guess it does. That sure does look like it has one. Oh, I can see right through it. What's a mirror? But if you were doing a reconnaissance, you would want your camera underneath, shooting down. There's actually a weird shape to this plane. They have quite a weird shape to the fuselage. Got a super big flat bottom like that. Probably makes a lot of lift. Inverted V12 engine, so the exhaust stacks are kind of low. There's a cannon coming out of the nose. I thought there was supposed to be 2 more cannons, or actually just machine guns underneath the engine that fired forward. This one has cannons outside the propeller arc and the wing, so this one has 3 cannons. It's supposed to have 2 machine guns as well.